Arch-Acolyte. So that's what I am this time. Perhaps the last. He made me a promise that once his plan comes to fruition and his dreams achieved, he will grant me the safety I longed for. Do I believe him? Should I? Even if it means his plan is one of great injustice, of unimaginable chaos. Young people often struggle with this question, trying to find balance on that fine line that defines right and wrong. But to someone who has run for as long as I had, the only question that matters is how much blood my name must bear this time. Heroes will come for me, and I will be their villain. For this legacy of mine is one of a traitor's. I was never prepared to leave the house where I was born and raised, yet so has fate demanded. For when the soldiers in shining armors came to my home, chanting glory and justice, set fire to the castle, they burned the only world that I knew. Along with it, all its inhabitants, save my brother, his wife, and myself. That 8-year-old girl never knew the concept of loss. I asked my brother where everyone else had gone to, and when we could return home. He did not answer, so I thought to myself, they'll put out the fire soon. In a short while, we'll go back in and celebrate it with a dinner. So I followed my brother and his wife into a world I had never known, with that thought in my mind. Since then, that short while has become decades, and never again have I seen those faces that once smiled at me at the Great Hall's table. We ran far away from our homeland, into a freezing, inhospitable land that they called Skyrim. My brother, once a high, noble son, the hope of our family, became a guard of a small, unbeknown village. We all adjusted to the life of a simple villager, not clinging to what used to be. We had to, as such is what we needed to do in order to survive. My brother's wife was pregnant a few years later, and I had become old enough that being called an aunt wouldn't be as awkward. And during these years, neither of them had told me of why the soldiers did what they did to our family. Then it was the time when the eagle soars, seeking to thrive, and the dragon rises, its flames burning the skies. Having recently moved to a new farming community, my brother was conscripted to fight the Thalmor against his wish of caring for his wife. We looked at him as he walked to the horizon with his newfound comrades, wearing shining armors, chanting glory and freedom. The Great War was over, or so they called. There was nothing great with that war, except its end. For that was when my brother would return. Every sunrise and sunset, my sister-in-law would hold their infant daughter to gaze upon that horizon, hoping he would return on that day. And one day, he finally returned with his comrades. The soldiers had put his head on a pike as they marched closer and closer and closer towards our village, chanting glory and justice. They didn't bother with the other villagers, for their target was clear. Having found out who my brother was, they came to wipe out his family. My sister-in-law, hands holding my niece, brought me to the inn cellar. She promised me safety, that we would live through this. We trusted our lives with the village, believing in its vision, that together we can change what was designed and make hope blossom on barren lands. And this was how they repaid our faith. The Dubois are down below. I hid inside a barrel while the soldiers stormed the inn. I held my breath, fearing for my life, as the soldiers tortured my brother's wife. When they had had their way with her, they lit the torches and set the inn aflame to bury the memory of my family as they once tried years ago. Not until I was certain the soldiers had all left did I dare get out of the barrel and check on my sister-in-law, who laid lifelessly on the ground. My daughter was nowhere to be found, and I thought the fire claimed her. With that scorching heat, the crumbling ceiling, I knew that's the end. I held her hand to my heart, then I hugged her. If I must die, then I would find solace in death by my family's side. Yet, as I saw the world around me begin to crumble, I heard a whisper. She survived the soldiers' torture, but she couldn't make it out. With that last bit of strength of her life, she whispered to me a name, Saturnius. She told me of this Saturnius for a purpose, and this purpose required me to stay alive, so I did. It was difficult, but I didn't take too long to find out who this Saturnius was, and his history with my family. Saturnius the First, predecessor of Emperor Titus II. It was during his reign that my family brought High Rock to war, claiming thousands of innocents. They called it the Dubois Wars, for it was not one, but many wars against every proud imperial citizen. Yet, who would have known? Who would have bothered to find out that this war was fought exactly by the will of their glorious emperor? When the Thalmor laid embargo on High Rock, the nobles were weakened and were unable to pay taxes to the emperor. Such negligence was therefore interpreted as betrayal, that by failing to pay their obligation, they had become thieves who stole from the empire. And so my grandfather started a war, swiping the kingdoms of High Rock, so that the justice he believed in could be served. And so a Breton family spilled Breton blood on our homeland, so that a Cyrodiilic emperor, well-fed and guarded, could wait to count his coin. My grandfather thought his cause was just, for it was done in service to the empire, for there existed a greater good than his own country. He never expected that in the end, those whom he fought for the emperor against would make deals with his very liege, promising to repay the taxes. Then my family and the war they fought were no longer necessary to the empire. Easily the emperor cast the Dubois aside, accused us of treason. Honorable men shed blood in wars, believing there is solace in glory. Yet what is glory but a reward mechanism manufactured by those men of greed? The powers that be brought my grandfather to his execution, without remorse, without shame, and his family was since put under house arrest. On the day my grandfather died, patriots stood accused of treason. The nation's servants became its worst enemies. And so it has been revealed to me that mine is the legacy of a traitor. I have learned the truth, yet I dare not seek justice. For when wrong was done upon you by a criminal, you can kill them or appeal to an authority. Yet what could I do when the injustice was done not by one or two criminals, but an entire empire of greed, murders, and deceit? Perhaps the best I could do was to stay alive. The empire should believe that I was taken by the fire. No reason for them not to. I decided to go to Markarth. Perhaps there I could finally be at peace within the mountains, close to the land I once called home long, long ago. We spend our lives searching for a perfect home. Not a house, nor a shelter, but home. Some homes more different than the others, but this home is what we spend the entirety of our life's brief while to find, to earn, to try to live in. My home is peace, to be safe and settled. Not a glorious campaign, nor an extravagant banquet. Home for me is never having to run again. But in the end, I finally learned that there can be no peace. Not for me. For mine is the legacy of a traitor, intolerable to the mighty empire, as once again those shining soldiers in steel, with their chance of glory and country, had come to claim their home. Without much objection, the authorities of Markarth allowed the soldiers into the city, aided their hunt of that traitor, barely an adult. When I heard the marching sounds of soldiers outside my home, instead of agony or wrath, my heart was filled with nothing but questions. Was Markarth not meant for me? If it is not supposed to be where I am at peace, then which village, which city, which nation is? Or perhaps fate never even intended for me to find that peace, for it has gifted me with the Dubois name, pit me against an empire. For a joke. First, the divines made the heroes who have earned the world's respect through their fulfillment of justice and defense of the weak. Then, they made me. If the Almighties have willed that some are fated to become the great men, and the others their stepping stones, is there a meaning to fight it? But this life is mine. Not for the gods above that heavens or the kings in their palaces to rule as they see fit. I chose to survive, even if that is through the ruin of the order they've built and profited from. I ran from the warrens before the soldiers saw me, made my way to the wilderness to train myself and prepare for one last journey. To find that hero who rode the dragon to slaughter the villains and burned their homes. Then kill him. Amulius Salvian's parents died to the Dubois soldiers. Then he killed mine. If I kill him, then myself. Perhaps this cycle of hate will end forever.